Hi class, for this week's lecture I want to talk about Aristotle and Aristotle's concept of virtue and the virtues. This is an important notion for Aristotle. In fact, we call Aristotle a virtue theorist, that this is a different kind of moral theory that places an emphasis on virtues. So what are virtues? Well, a virtue is a quality or a trait of character. This is something that resides in who we are. It describes our personality, our character. In Greek, the word for virtue is arete, and the word virtue comes from the Latin. But the Greek word that's being used here is arete, and literally arete means excellence. And so it doesn't necessarily have to have a moral connotation. So a virtue or an excellence is a trait that something needs to possess, that when it is possessed and exercised, that allows for performing function well. And so a virtue then is a trait that you and I need to possess, that when we have it and we exercise it, we act accordingly, then we perform our function well or flourish. But this holds true not just for humans, it holds true for all things in Aristotle's view. And so everything he thinks has this function or characteristic activity that it needs to perform well in order to flourish. And the virtues or the excellences are traits that thing needs to possess in order to flourish. Now for us, of course, flourishing we call happiness. Remember the lecture from last week, eudaimonia. And so virtues are the traits that you and I need to possess, that when we possess and exercise them, then we are happying, flourishing, living the good life for humans. So it's a state of character. A virtue is a state of character that decides. For you and I, it's always in regard to making choices, because that's what we do, right? We're the kind of thing that chooses. We use practical reason to guide our lives. And so for us, the virtues then are states of character that decide, that make a decision. And you can think of it, a virtue is a disposition to act. When I possess a virtue or a vice, and this holds true for vices as well, my character disposes me to act in a certain way. For example, bravery. Suppose that you're brave. You have the character trait bravery or courage. What that means is that you have a disposition to act bravely in the face of danger, to fear the right things in the right way at the right time. Again, the same is true for vices. So if I'm cowardly, then I possess the vice cowardice. And what that is, it's a disposition to act cowardly in the face of danger. So, you're brave and I'm cowardly, and we're both in the same situation. We're standing in the face of danger. Well, your disposition, because you're brave, is to stand there bravely. My disposition is to turn and run. And so, but while my disposition may be to act cowardly, I can act bravely by using self-control. So, you and I are standing there in the face of danger, and my disposition is to run because I'm a coward, but I turn and I look at you and I see you standing there bravely, and I say, oh, yeah, that's the virtuous act. That's what the virtuous person does, and even though I'm disposed to run, I can make myself stand there and act bravely. So virtues have to be fostered, though. They have to be, you have to work on them. You have to practice. And so if I'm the coward, then I have to stand there and practice standing in the face of danger again and again and again until I develop the virtue of bravery. And Aristotle says, think of it like a skill. You have to practice. And when you're learning a skill, you have to act as if you already have it. In order to learn the skill, you have to practice as if you have the skill. You think about learning a musical instrument. You have to play well in order to learn to play well. It's almost a paradox, right? You have to act as if you already have the skill. And usually we do that by copying someone else. So when I'm learning to play a musical instrument, I have an instructor, and I do what she does. I watch her play until I can get the skill as well. So the idea is that, with enough good practice, one develops this skill. So it's not the case that practice makes perfect. It has to be that perfect practice makes perfect. You have to perform the act itself. You have to act as if you have the skill in order to gain the skill. And so in order for me to become brave, if I'm a coward, it's not enough for me just to keep putting myself in danger and then running, right? That's not going to work. I have to keep putting myself in danger and then standing bravely and acting as if I have the virtue bravery. Even though I'm a coward, I have to act as if I have it. And if I do that enough, I will come to have it. I will become brave. That's the view. So again, until one has the virtue, one needs to use self-control or continence. You have to make yourself act a certain way. So again, if I'm the coward, then I have to be continent and stand in the face of danger and make myself do what you're doing. Mimic the courageous person until I become brave. And once I have the virtue, once I become brave, then I'm disposed to act bravely. That's what I do because I have that character trait. I don't even think about it. In the face of danger, I fear the right things in the right way at the right time. And so I don't need this self-control. Now let's talk a little bit about pleasure and pain. When we act in character, Aristotle says, that feels good. We get pleasure when we act according to our dispositions. Acting out of character, using continence, going against our disposition, it doesn't feel good. It's hard. It's painful. So pleasure and pain then let us know where we stand in regard to virtue. How close am I to becoming brave when I'm the coward? Or let's take a different example. Let's think about generosity, the virtue of generosity. If I'm stingy, but I know how the generous person acts, and so I act generously, it hurts. I know around here, around Christmas time, the Salvation Army folks, they set up around the grocery stores, and then you have the person ringing the bell there. If I'm stingy, and the person ringing the bell, I think, okay, well, the generous act is to go over there and put some money in that kettle. But for the stingy person, making himself do that, well, that hurts. That's my money. I don't want to put it in there. I'm a stingy person. And so the idea is that, until I become generous, acting generously is going to hurt me. And then as the pain decreases, that lets me know how close I am to actually being generous. And until, right, you don't give until it hurts, you give until it stops hurting. That's the idea. For the generous person walks over to the kettle and puts money in and then feels good about herself. Right? When we perform virtuous actions and we are virtuous, it feels good. For the generous person, helping somebody out in need, that's a pleasurable act. You feel good about yourself when you're done. That's because you are generous. And so, there is a tradition of suspicion in the moral tradition, suspicion of that good feeling. And Aristotle says nonsense. There's nothing wrong with feeling good about performing virtuous acts. You should feel good about performing virtuous acts. If you are a virtuous person, then you will feel good. If you don't feel good when you perform virtuous acts, well, there's something wrong with your character. Keep working, keep practicing until it feels good.